get into Ravens and Titans. Of course, a rematch of last season's divisional round when Derrick Henry just ran all over the Baltimore Ravens and surprisingly took down the MVP and Lamar Jackson. Is it going to be the same story this year?
I'm leaning heavily towards no. I mentioned it on the podcast earlier this week. The Ravens, I think, are playing better right now than they did at any point last year. You know, Lamar's got another year of playoff experience under his belt. Granted, he didn't win. He still hasn't, gotten that first playoff win. So I think that does happen this weekend. The running game is on another level. You get Dobbins in the mix. We talked about this on the earlier episode this week, but I don't see how that Titans defense, they've struggled all season long. I don't see how they're going to slow down that Baltimore offense at all.
Yeah, it's the defense for me that I really worry about Tennessee. I'm really high on the Titans. I love Ryan Tannehill, and I don't need to say anything about Derrick Henry, and that same goes with A.J. Brown. We know how dominant those guys are and can be. But the Ravens are red hot right now. And if it were any team other than Tennessee, I'd, without hesitation, pick the Ravens. Maybe because I'm really high on the Titans and I guess I like to root for them. I think they're a great story. That's why I'm considering the Titans. But if Lamar doesn't win this game, that's 3 years in a row with no playoff wins. And to me, that means nothing. He's still so young and he's only going to get better. But the media is going to have a field day on him. And I think he's going to come in here really, really motivated, and he's going to want to make the difference and be that guy, be that spark. His passing numbers weren't great this year, but as the season's gone on, he's gotten to pick up the pace in the run game, ran for over 1,000 yards once again, which is incredible. And like you mentioned, that tight end's defense can be just like Swiss cheese at times. So I think I'm leaning towards the Ravens as well, especially with what I've seen in recent weeks.
Let's not forget last year when the Titans beat them. Lamar didn't play for basically 3 weeks.
Yeah, because they were on
because they played their second last
game, and then
they had a bye week. And it's kind of the other way now this year with the Titans. They haven't looked great down the stretch. I mean, you're a field goal away from going to overtime against the Texans. What was the week before?
Blown out against the Packers.
The Packers blew them out. So I don't have my belief in the Titans right now is quite low. So yeah, I mean, I think it's Ravens all day here.
The Titans is literally all on Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill. That's the only way they can win if both of them play out of their mind. Probably going to be a high-scoring game. Whereas the Ravens, I see so many different ways in which they can win. You mentioned Lamar Jackson hadn't played in pretty much 3 weeks a year ago. His receivers hadn't either, and that was incredibly evident. So many dropped passes in that game, and unfortunately, a ton of the criticism fell on the shoulders of Lamar Jackson. He's a year older. He knows I feel like he almost knows what it takes now. Even though he hasn't won, he's sort of developing this idea of what he needs to do to get that done. And I think I'm starting to talk myself into it in that he does get it done indeed. I hope this is one of those, like, we see a lot of classics on Wildcard weekend.
Yep.
I hope this is one of those like 38-35 shootouts that really gets exciting late, but I'm going to pick the Ravens.
And one quick thing, lastly here about last year's game. There were obviously fans in the stands, and it was in Baltimore, and you could feel that whole stadium tense up. That pressure is not going to be there this year. Obviously, there's still pressure. It's playoffs, but they're in Tennessee, and I think it's going to allow Lamar to just play a little bit more free.
The storyline all game last year was, oh my gosh, are the Ravens, the favorites to win the Super Bowl, actually going to lose this game? And as the game went further and further closer to the fourth quarter, that worry just only started to grow. Whereas you're right, this year, like, the Ravens are favored against the spread, which I'm not incredibly surprised, but I think the Titans deserve the respect too in this matchup. I think it's there's not much to split these two teams. But I'm going to pick the Ravens, Lamar Jackson revenge game. And
Game of the weekend.
Game of the weekend. 100% agree.